Welcome to the Zillennial Experience, a podcast hosted by Ashley, Annie, and Jeremy.
Every other week, we sit down to discuss our experiences and opinions as people who entered the world right on the cusp of two very different generations. You can expect to hear all kinds of discussions, including our favorite toys from the 2000s, what music videos changed our lives, and why we are the way we are, with some tasteful cursing thrown in there.
Thanks for joining us as we share some laughs, tears, and childhood fears. It's our first episode.
Very exciting. I'm excited.
I can't believe we're finally here doing the first episode. I know we've been talking about it now for at least a couple months.
Yeah.
But it's just so exciting actually coming through.
I feel like it's been a year.
I mean, maybe, but I think in the past couple months it's really gotten serious, where we started talking about it more, and now we're here.
So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about with the Zillennial Experience was our experiences growing up. I grew up in I was born in 1996. So, I'm really right on that cusp. I think I identify a little more with Gen Z than you guys do. I think you remember the early 2000s a little more than I do.
Yeah.
For 9/11, for example. I remember I was at home because I was in...
How old were you, 9/11?
4.
Oh, you were little.
Yeah, I have mixed
6.
memories.
Well, we're all a year apart, roughly, right? So...
Which,
But with how it landed, my birthday, I hadn't turned 5 yet. I turned 5 a few months later.
It was right before my birthday.
Yeah,
it was 10
he
days
had
before.
just turned 6, a month later.
Yeah.
9/11 happened.
Or a month before, yeah.
Oh, a month before. Yeah.
We were all little, let's be honest.
But I remember it though. I remember being in elementary school and something weird happening and all the teachers acting weird and all the adults acting weird.
We got dismissed early.
Yeah, we did
but
too.
I was 4K. So, I didn't really need to be there.
Yeah, it's not like you were, in the middle of some crazy exam or anything.
Right.
You were probably coloring.
Snacking.
Yeah, taking it up.
But all I remember really is, we had, those TVs mounted in the corners of our classrooms, the big box TVs, the heavy ones.
The ones that you got a card in.
Yeah, and you could hear it, audibly buzz, bzzz in the room.
That CRT, the cathode ray tube, or whatever it's called, inside those. That's what made it so heavy.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Explain. I'm curious now.
Well, I don't want to get too off topic with that, because I can go so deep into that. It's just electronics, but what else about growing up?
But I just remember the TV in the corner, and I remember the teacher changing it, turning it on, and we had it always on this channel set for the school news, and I remember her changing it to the news and seeing the towers come in, and then all of a sudden my memory cuts out and I'm at home playing, and I remember watching my mom watch the news of later, everything that was discovered that day.
Yeah, it wasn't live anymore. She was watching
right.
the
reruns, and she was also watching oh, well, now this many people are missing. This many people, yeah. So.
Do you remember her reaction? How she was reacting to watching that?
I mean, being 4, I didn't really, I wasn't emotionally intelligent enough yet. Yeah. But I remember something was wrong. Mm-hmm. This isn't right. I could see she was upset. I think Dad came home from work early that day, too. I think it pretty much just stopped America that day.
Oh, yeah.
It did.
For a while.
Because, I was in South Carolina, nowhere near New York. Mm-hmm. But I still went home from school early. They just didn't know what else was happening. And with the CDC being so close, within a few hours of where I grew up, where we currently are, I think a lot of the worry was that the next plane could have hit the CDC.
Oh.
That was some of the buzz.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Because there were planes that were aimed for the Pentagon. I mean, one struck the Pentagon, and then there was one aimed for, I think, the Capitol building. That was the one that crashed in a field, right?
And the White House. There was one for the White House, too.
Can you imagine if those all succeeded? It was obviously an enormous tragedy, just what happened, the Pentagon and the Twin Towers. But can you imagine if all of those planes made contact? How much more devastating it would have been. That's so crazy.
But thinking of it, growing up from that and everything and having that frame a big portion of, my childhood. I mean, the TSA wasn't a thing before that.
Yeah, people could literally walk on planes without any kind of security check whatsoever.
Yeah. So like right after 9/11 happened, somebody at my dad's work, my dad worked for this really big company, and on one of the bulletin boards, somebody had posted 2 flights to Hawaii because their wife wouldn't fly.
Wow.
After that happened, she refused. So my dad was like, "Oh, 2 free flights." Like, yeah. So he grabbed him off the bulletin board. He talks to my mom. They're a little concerned about it, but my dad's like, "What's the chances? Let's be real." Like, after a big...
Like, right after, yeah.
I agree with your dad 100%.
Yeah.
So, like, travel was super cheap. I went to Hawaii. I was 5 by the time that happened.
You guys
I went
on
to Hawaii.
vacation?
Yeah.
Ooh.
It was my parents' like 5th or 6th year anniversary. So like, but my mom didn't want to leave me at home because I was so young.
Right.
She didn't want to leave me at home for like 10 days.
Yeah, that would have been, not fun for you.
So me and my older sister went. My parents got really like fucked up and got tattoos.
What?
Yeah, my dad has like this tattoo on his arm right here. And it is a tiki man with a ding-a-ling.
Yeah,
It's
when
a
I first
fertility
saw that,
tiki.
when I met your dad, I was like, "What?" I was like, "This is a great starting point for this relationship."
And what'd your mom
and how
get?
this is going to
My
go.
mom has a moon and a sun
On her belly?
around her belly button.
That must have hurt so bad.
They were very drunk, so
So she probably doesn't remember whether it hurt or not.
probably not. They were having a great time. My sister was being my babysitter for the night. We had ordered Hawaiian pizza into the room. We had the like balcony door open and you could see the ocean. And like we had bought these like grass skirts beforehand and kind of like we're playing hula
That's
girl,
adorable.
you know? Yeah. So I was very fortunate growing up. I have to say that.
Yeah.
We kind of grew up in the, I wouldn't say upper middle class, solid middle class. We grew up like solid middle class. We afforded at least one vacation a year, but we didn't go, my parents didn't own the newest car, right? My house we've been at, my parents are still living there my entire life. Like 26, 27 years. They had a few years before I was born. So I was very fortunate in that fact.
Yeah.
But I think, like, going back to the whole 9/11 thing, I think that was like the anxiety point for everyone in our generation.
Yeah.
Because
Oh
like
my
that put the
gosh.
whole nation into like this big anxiety, like worried all the time, panic, like what can happen next. Because going back to when I remember my teacher talking about how like she's just so paranoid to go to the airport at the time. Like she talked about how she was not going to get on a plane for the rest of that year, and just that anxiety filled moment. And I think that's why we all have anxiety to an extent. It's one of the many reasons.
Yeah. Part of me is almost grateful that we were so young because kids are so incredibly adaptable. Like,
Right.
we watched it happen and we were like, we're like, it is what it is. You know, I don't remember how different it was flying on a plane before versus after.
Right.
No.
Like
I just
I've
remember
always
after.
known TSA.
Right.
Yeah.
And in that aspect, I think we kind of dodged a bullet a little bit. Like, imagine being like 20 when 9/11 happened, and what you know of flying is, you know, it's safe. The danger is not even like a thought in your mind, and then all of a sudden this huge tragedy happens, and you have to like rethink about everything you know.
Yeah.
That's trauma. It's reshaping something that you thought you knew. You know, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it would have been way harder to process
I mean,
as an adult.
thinking about it as the point of view of my mom, because she would have been like 29
Yeah.
at the time, maybe 30, I think 29. I mean, that's a big change to happen when you're 29, about to be 30. Like, that's a big change of like the whole world. But remember right after 9/11 when everybody was like flying their flags and like always had the little pin on the lapel of like the American flag. My dad had one. He had like cufflinks. I can't remember. I was so young, you know. It was either cufflinks or like bunch of pins. He would always wear an American flag. Like it was a big deal. It was like our Red Scare, like the communism thing.
Right. I think American flag sales went up like exponentially like the next day
sure.
after 9/11
Yeah. It really did bring the country together. Like,
for a short time.
yeah. Yeah. It was nice while it lasted.
Yeah.
Not the event itself, but the after effect was overall like people were ready to rebuild and support each other, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, and I think that's the only time in our lifetime thus far where the country's been that united.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
But that might just be coming. News was a lot different back then.
Mm-hmm.
Because now it's like 24/7 in your face. On Facebook, you get news. Like, you
And
take
there's always, like, I hate the word agenda because everyone uses it like a weapon, but there is a hidden agenda on both sides, all sides now. Like, there's always, like, the catchy headline and it's all about money now. Whereas before, even when we were kids, I feel like a lot of it was, like, just pure reporting. Like, here's the story.
journalism.
This is what happened. And you could, take whatever you wanted from that yourself as a
They presented the facts.
adult.
Versus opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss that.
So what else about your upbringing? So obviously born in 96.
Yeah. Let's see.
How was like school like for you?
Excuse me. I have a little cold. School was good. I mean, I feel like I have a very interesting school experience because I have one that not a lot of people have. So in the district that I'm in or grew up in, at third grade you get tested. If you pass the test and you're in the 90, I think my year is the 98th percentile or above, you get invited to the school. And at the school they go more in depth in science,
Exclusive.
math, everything. Right. Technically it's not private because it's invitation only. It's not private.
So you didn't have to pay money to go there?
No. It's a public school,
Oh.
but only for the elite in the county, which is like
but
fucked up a little
gatekeeping
bit.
for the social
That's so
classes.
interesting. I've
Right.
never heard of anything like that.
So it was third grade to eighth grade. I was with these same kids from third grade to eighth grade. These kids, I mean, they're not kids anymore. We're adults. But I still keep up with a lot of them on Facebook. I think being through school for that long with a certain amount of people, I mean, everybody's secrets.
Mm-hmm.
You know who picks their boogers in third grade, and when you're in eighth grade and you're thinking about cute boys, he picked his boogers in third grade and you know it.
Yeah.
But
So-
like you can't hold that against them though. Like we all picked our boogers in third grade at least
And
once.
some still do.
Right. Exactly.
Some still do. So that was a really interesting experience, and I feel like very fortunate about it because we got to do extra stuff. Like better field trips, better science experiments. I have dissected a sheep's eyeball, a squid, a rat, a worm, a frog, all in middle school before we even got to high school.
See, that's crazy because the only thing I've ever dissected was like a frog.
Ugh.
No, we did a fetal
Like
pig
the
in high
classic-
school.
I've tried
frog.
to erase that from my memory for so long. Oh my goodness. One thing you guys will learn about me is that I have a paralyzing fear of frogs. I cannot explain to you where it came from. I've never had like a traumatic, well, that's not true. I had the fear of frogs before a traumatic experience happened with frogs. But yeah, we had to dissect a frog. I think I was in 9th grade, freshman year. That was a hard day for me. I did not like that.
But how was high school like? So you got the third from eighth, and that was like a semi-private school.
Yeah, well, you're around the same people, from third to eighth grade, and then I think there were only like 60 to 90 of us per grade level,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then I go to high school, and I'm put into public high school.
Culture shock.
Big culture shock because the school that I went to, yeah, it wasn't for the rich kids, but it's very cool. It's funny. It's really funny that all the rich kids went there. It's funny that we had one black person in my entire grade from 3rd to 8th.
How big was your class?
Like 60 to 90 kids. Like I don't know the exact number.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
One black kid.
Wow.
So I go to a public high school and it's major culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I don't know how to act around black people. And that was like a big thing that I had to deal with because I wasn't ever in their spaces.
Yeah.
I just wasn't.
Which is the exact opposite for me and like my upbringing through school, but we'll get to that after you finish.
Yeah, and then I went to Fine Arts Center for half the day, like a fine arts program. And so that was really nice. I would leave So I would go to school dressed all artsy, and I'd go to regular high school and they'd make fun of me, and then I'd go over across the street to the arts high school and I wasn't dressed artsy enough. So like that was a big balance I had to learn how to do. I would literally pack extra clothing to go over there.
Remember that really strong need to like fit in high school? It was
just
strong.
in school in general. I think elementary school it wasn't as bad, but then like middle school really hit.
Yeah.
And then that's when like I noticed the huge desire to fit in.
You suddenly become so aware of like how you present to the world and how other people do, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I need to do something about this.
Right.
You know? God forbid you're different.
Oh yeah, in middle school, I mean, that was a tough time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I was with the same kids and everything, but those same kids, they knew everything about me. They knew what kind of poked the bear.
Right.
Yeah.
In Jackson Tally, I remember when you stood up in front of the entire, I think, 7th grade class on the bleachers in the gymnasium, and you stood up and said, Ashley Gilbert's chin dimple is so deep I could eat cereal out of it. I remember that forever. But it's okay, I got the last laugh.
Horrible.
Kids are just so mean in general. And I think it's just been exponentially worse since like everyone has a cell phone now. Like I didn't get my first cell phone until like middle school-ish, and it was only like a flip phone, and it was only supposed to be used for like emergency contacts. Cause I did band in middle school, so like I would stay after school a lot, and like, oh, here's this phone to like call
Just in
us.
case you see a creepy man pull up in a van.
Don't take
try
free
to steal
candy.
you.
I had to share my first flip phone with my mom. She
No
took it to
way.
work, and then after work, like after school, whatever, she would give it to me so that I
Man.
could take it to my extracurriculars.
Yeah, and this was before iPhones. Like, I always think about the fact that, like, kids that are born, I haven't done the math in my head, but kids these days in general, and with air quotes, don't know a world without iPhones,
Yeah.
which is so crazy. And I'm not, saying it's good or bad, but, like, it's just, I remember very clearly having to use, like, a brick Nokia phone and having to
My dad had
text
one.
without the keyboard, so you have to hit, for S 3 times one number, Yeah, it was just a very different way to live.
But
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the unique perspective about like where we were born, because we got to experience like the last little bit of no technology growing up.
Yeah.
Like everyone after our generation pretty much getting tablets and cell phones thrown at them. And I think a lot of parents now just like give their kids an iPad just because they don't want to deal with it.
Yes, and.
Well, yeah, it can be positive in an extent, but I think I've just noticed some people that just give their iPad just because they're stressed out, they're burnt out, and they just, you're like, here you go, like, thank you, technology.
Yeah.
I can take a break from parenting for a short bit. Here, play this educational game.
Like, I always want to think that when I have kids, I'm not going to hand them an iPad, but then I realize how much of a disadvantage I am putting them at by not introducing them to technology as a child, because everybody else is.
Right. Like, it's not going anywhere unless
It's
we
not.
get like
Here's
a
another
huge solar
question.
flare or something.
What's the difference between parking them in front of a TV and parking them in front of an iPad? They're both screens.
One's interactive.
True.
Another generational gap there, too, though.
Like, for example, like my grandparents, when my whole family's over at their house, they'll kind of look at all of us on our phones and kind of scoff a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but what's the difference between that and you guys sitting in front of a TV for hours a day? Like they're both screens. One of them just has all the information you could possibly need. You know what I mean?
And that's like something that Jeremy like brought to my attention, because my mom she would always say things about like him playing video games, because we lived with them for a little bit before he moved into here and became your neighbor. But she would always say things like, oh, he's playing video games like so much. Is that really what you want? And I'm like, you come home from work and you sit in front of the TV. At least him sitting in front of the TV, he's making choices.
Well, it's not only that making choices, but also like I'm usually playing with my friends. Like I don't like playing alone.
Yeah, there's a social aspect.
Yeah, exactly. It's a social aspect and an interactive aspect, because usually I'm playing with like my brother, Brandon, just friends.
Yeah.
Sometimes like the party will get huge. We got like 6 to 8 people all playing at once, all talking, and just most of the time we're not even talking about the game itself. We're just kind of talking like we are now.
Yeah.
Except I have joysticks in my thumbs.
Yeah. And really, like, any generation is going to be different from the previous one, and there's always those things that each generation has about the new one that's like, oh, I can't believe you guys do this. It's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
They're always going to find something to be upset about. And I feel like the fact that we have so much information available to us all the time, I feel like that's a pretty decent thing to have. Like, that's a good change, I think. It has its pros and cons, of course, but
still a problem, but a good problem.
yeah.
Yeah, but as with anything, like too much water can kill you. Like too much of anything can hurt you. So I think that's why like moderation's key for pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
So now that I've gone all in about me in my past, I'm gonna pass it on to 95.
Okay, yeah.
Let's start with you.
All right, so yeah, I was born in summer of '95, so I'm a Leo. Elementary school was, all right. There's nothing crazy about elementary school. Like, I just went to elementary in South Carolina in like the Myrtle Beach, Conway area.
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy about that, but I did distinctly remember the change from elementary school to middle school. And I just remember being so nervous with my mom, like on the first day. And I was just like so nervous because like even at that age, like I knew that middle school was like a lower income type school. And I think I was worried at the time like that I was going to be the minority there.
Yeah.
And that's essentially how it was. The school like was exactly opposite of what you had. You say you had like one black kid. I was like one of the only 12 white kids in this entire school, or at least in my grade level that I remember. But that was a challenge because that's the most critical time where you're going through and you get like a lot of peer pressure. Like the only fight I've ever been in, like physical fight in school, was exactly, was then. And it was so dumb. It was like me and the like one of the other 12 white kids were just like beefing for some reason. It was like I was like the Eminem. There was another dude dressed like MGK. We were just trying to fit in with the black culture at the time because obviously like we're just middle school kids. We're just trying to fit in with the populace.
So you just started fighting to be cool?
Well, it was only one fight. I wouldn't say started fighting. Like I didn't start an MMA career in middle school or anything. But and like the other 10 white kids were all like country boys, and I just like, even though I was born and raised in the South, like they were just that kind of like ignorant country. I don't know like how to exactly describe that, but
racist.
Yeah, and even as a child, I couldn't even like fathom being racist. Like I'll treat you the way like how you should be treated.
Yeah.
But so that was a interesting time for sure. I learned a lot, did a lot of things I shouldn't have. And then another 180 transition, moved back up to North Carolina. So pretty much my childhood, when I was like, by the time I turned 18, I've already lived in North Carolina and South Carolina for like 9 years. So it was almost like an even split between the Carolinas. So typically I just say like, oh, like where are you from? I'm just the Carolinas. I have enough experience in like both of them. And then I get to high school in North Carolina, and it's the exact opposite. Like in terms like the white was a majority because there was just nothing but chicken farms and like pig coops everywhere. And like driving down the road with your windows down, you would just smell farm. Eventually,
Good farm
I
or
got
bad
used
farm?
to. What's that?
Good or bad?
It was bad in a lot of areas, especially going
boy.
past the chicken farms during like the summer months.
Yeah, chickens can be stinky.
Yeah, and like you never really get used to it to an extent, but like I guess you tolerate it more.
You become nose blind to it.
Yeah.
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 I don't know if you fully ever become nose blind to chicken poop though. That is a very strong smell.
It is.
Yeah. And by the time I got to high school, I remember like middle school was the whole flip phone thing and the Motorola Razr,
Everyone
the Nokia.
was getting their first phones.
Yep. And then like it took this like quick transition. So when I got to high school, I remember my first like smartphone, and it was like I forgot what it was. It was an LG something, but the screen was a touch screen, and then you flip it on its side, and you had those physical keys.
Chocolate?
Yes.
That sounds familiar.
I had a purple chocolate.
I remember
did
being
it flip
silver.
up or did it slide up?
Yeah.
It slid.
That was the chocolate.
Yeah, and it was like silver.
I don't know why.
I'm surprised you guys remember that, but
because my parents would never let me have one. I always got the cheapest. I never got the it was a big deal to get the physical keyboard.
Yeah.
I miss the physical
That was
keyboard.
one of the first phones I think that had the full keyboard. That's what everyone wanted.
I just miss that clicking
Or was it
sound.
the Envy?
The Envy was flip.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because I wanted the pink Motorola Razr. I wanted the Razor so bad.
Small flip.
I felt so cool when I got the Razor.
It was like the really flat. It's called the Razor because it was so flat. It was basically the MacBook Air of phones.
At the time, yeah.
It was so thin, and it was like the predecessor to the keyboard phones, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know what year it was like the most popular, but both my sisters had one, and I distinctly remember my oldest sister having Beyonce's the song that goes to the left, to the left. Irreplaceable, thank you.
I love Beyonce.
That was her alarm clock in the morning on her pink Motorola Razr, and I wanted to experience that so bad. You know how everything's a big deal when you're a kid?
Oh, everything.
Yeah. Anyways, that's how I remember Razrs. I really wanted one because my sisters had one. And then I went from the brick Nokia, skipped the Razr, went to either the chocolate or the Envy. I don't remember which one came first.
Yeah, neither do I. Like, I just remember the phones, and I remember using them, but I don't remember, like...
The order?
Yeah. Because I was so young for one. But I was surprised that I even got... I guess the cell phones was, like... the biggest thing because being gone for school, because I grew up for the most part like lower middle class, if that, maybe like
kind of on the poverty line.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like full blown poor, but like I pretty much grew up in trailer parks most of my life. Yeah. And that also had like a unique effect, especially since my dad was gone most of the time because he was just working. Like he worked a lot, so he wasn't there, and then my mom would just like sleep in, do what she did for most of the day. So, and it was just like me and my siblings, and then we just got into like a lot of nonsense. Like one time, me and my brother set the trampoline on fire.
But it's like made of nylon and metal. How does it catch on fire?
So we didn't burn like the metal, but we did burn like the nylon or like the trampoline
the
fabric.
Netting part, like the jumping part.
But this is how bored we were, though. Like I
have so many questions.
Yeah. So this was in middle school as well. I think this was like 7th or 8th-ish grade. I want to say like 7th, but regardless, my dad borrowed, because we were about to go to Disney, or we just got back from Disney, and my dad borrowed one of like this moving container. It was like this big plastic moving container that you put on the top of your vehicle, so like all your baggage and stuff would like be safely secured to the top and be out of the elements. But at the time we were small enough to both fit in there, and we were trying to be sneaky about the whole like playing with fire in the backyard while my mom was asleep sort of thing. And so we put it on the trampoline because it was hot. We're in South Carolina, it's in the middle of summertime, and we pushed this big like container under the trampoline to put it in the shade so it'd be cooler on the inside for us to an extent. And we just started like grabbing random things and setting it on fire. I think we were using like matches or a lighter, but so and of course with me, I always like, I don't know when to stop, so we were starting off one at a time, lighting one tissue, watching it burn, and also thinking about it now, I probably shouldn't have been burning things inside of a closed container because it's taking up oxygen.
You were a child.
Yeah, I was not that smart yet, obviously, burning my trampoline. But we get in there, we're just burning stuff. We're burning like little twigs and sticks, and we got like a tissue box, and we started burning individual tissues. And then I was like, yo, fuck it, let's do the whole thing. So I burnt the whole tissue box. And for whatever reason, that just got out of hand, and that was enough heat to set the container on fire. So the container caught fire.
But it's plastic.
That your dad borrowed?
Yeah, look, it's a little fuzzy. I was panicking. I was like getting sand and like trying to throw it on there furiously. And like,
I'm just so perplexed at how, can plastic just catch fire like that?
I would imagine so. Like certain plastics, maybe certain composites.
I just have never thought of plastic to be flammable.
Well, it definitely melts, or like the flame got big enough on the inside. Maybe I left something else in there that caught fire as well, but the flame got big enough to pretty much melt the entire container.
Oh no.
And the trampoline, there was like a huge gap in the trampoline.
Like a hole in the middle?
Yeah.
Oh no.
We fell through that a few times after the fact because
what my dad did.
Yeah. What my dad did just use good old duct tape. Duct tape and WD-40 will get you through most solutions.
Aww.
Yeah. So like he duct taped up the hole, put like multiple layers. But eventually after like the weather got to it after a while and us landing on it, like I fell through a few times. I think we all did at least once, but
That's a good story.
And how many siblings?
Oh yeah, so I have a brother that's 3 years younger than me, and then I have 2 twin sisters.
I did not know you had twin sisters.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And that was an interesting dynamic too, growing up for sure. Because it was like weird. Like sometimes we'd all get together as siblings and like do things, and like get along, and then just something stupid would happen, and then we would like separate. Whether like my sisters would go off to their room doing like girl things, and me and my brother would like separate and like go play video games or whatever we did at the time. And that was interesting because I know you didn't grow up with any siblings at all. So
No, only child.
yeah, like I couldn't imagine growing up as an only child.
It's very
Like
lonely.
how lonely and boring that may have got. Because even though like me and my siblings had gotten into fights, over the years as kids and stuff, like it was nice having them around because like at least I always had someone to talk to. Because like again, like I said, my parents weren't necessarily there all the time. Between my dad like just working a lot and my mom just like sleeping and doing her thing.
But let's
Yeah.
be honest. If you did something really bad, then you would have someone to blame it on.
Right.
I had an imaginary friend
Oh.
Aha.
when I was really little, and like you have the urge to blame somebody else for your issues when you're like really small, and you lie just because you're learning where your boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
I would look at my mom and be like, "BB did it."
Her name was BB?
Oh yeah, I had 2 imaginary friends. One was BB, and that was my youngest. Like when I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
So mom would be like, well, if BB doesn't come and clean up this mess, BB cannot come back to play anymore. And then she would like walk out and come back in and watch me like trying to clean up.
Yeah.
And then I had another one named Scooter when I was a little older.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I pretty much had friends.
Aww.
Yeah, I didn't have like the whole sibling. I have a sister, but she's 13 years older than me, and she's from a previous marriage of my father's. So we never grew up in the house together.
Yeah.
So we never really fully got that like sisterly experience. That didn't
Which
really
I
happen.
guess one of the benefits of being an only child though is the fact that like you pretty much got what you wanted.
Oh, my Christmases were really nice.
Having like 3 other
Ooh.
siblings was a strain financially.
Yeah.
No,
get-
if I wanted it, I could get it. Like I went on all the field trips. I went on like all of that because my parents could afford it because they only had one.
Right.
But it was just very lonely because like we were the last house before the dirt road started, and there was nothing past the dirt road but like one trailer. And like eventually kids did move in, but they were a few years younger than me, so it wasn't even like one of those let me go play with the neighborhood kids. Like
Right.
Yeah.
it wasn't really fun.
Yeah.
I at least had that in middle school as well. So I not only had my siblings, but I also had like a couple neighborhood kids in the trailer park we would play with. And it was also interesting through middle school too, for the most part, because like across our trailer park was like an even worse trailer park. Like we do not go there.
So were you like up on in your trailer park, like looking down at the other trailer park?
I wouldn't say that. I'd just say we were like maybe like a step ahead of that trailer park.
A little neater, a little nicer.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like the working class essentially. And the other one like was definitely ghetto as fuck.
Like drugs.
Yeah. Like drugs and like just like cracked out looking trailers that were like patched together with like different color sheet metal parts.
They made it happen.
Yeah.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
But I mean I still got like what I needed though. Like I still got all my school supplies. I still got like money to go on field trips. I just typically didn't have like enough money to go spend in the gift shop. Like if I went to Ripley's Aquarium or something like that, like yeah, my parents had like the $20 to go send me on the trip and sign the paper and whatnot, but then I didn't have any money, and like all my other friends and like classmates would be like buying stuff in the gift shop.
Yeah.
And I was so bad. Like I would just steal stuff out of the gift shop that could fit in my pockets and no one can get away with, because I just felt so bad that I couldn't like get what they were getting.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like a big indicator too, is like the Scholastic Book Fair in the same way. Like it's the fun money. It's not the money to go there. It's the fun money that's harder.
Right.
And that's where you learn who kind of has a little more than who in school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then like we went shopping at least like once a year, like one good year to like refresh the school wardrobe. And that was pretty much it. And like also like I was like super sheltered for most of the time growing up too. Like I couldn't play in my front yard. without like getting in trouble or yelled at for going to the front yard. It was very difficult to like go out on my own because like, my mom was just so concerned about like protecting me and make sure
Yeah.
I was
So it was
safe.
more of like a safety kind of sheltered.
Yeah.
Like your mom was afraid of something happening to you.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But
I mean, I feel that too. Being the last house before the dirt road and there not being anything really on the dirt road, my mom still wouldn't let me play in the front yard. I think it was just like, you know, like the Atlanta child murders happened.
Woman thing, you know?
I think it was because of the Atlanta child murders.
Was that? Well, I didn't. What?
I didn't grow up in the South. Tell me about that.
Excuse me. So in Atlanta, there was, I want to say the 80s. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, so sometimes my memory gets a little like mixed up and fuzzy. But I want to say the 80s that Atlanta saw a lot of child murders, and that's when like stranger danger campaigns started really like popping up and things like that. Yeah, so I think that was probably a trauma response.
Yeah.
To all the murdered kids, especially with like I grew up 2 hours from Atlanta. You 4?
No,
3 to 4?
Even more. No, it was more than that.
But still, I mean, I'm sure that
at the
reached...
coastal area where I was growing up.
6. That's closer to 6.
Yeah, if not a little bit more.
But still, that's close enough to be scary.
And I'm sure it reached, you know, the whole country.
I think it took a while, but yeah.
Yeah. The news was a thing.
I'll fill you in on I have a really good podcast for you to listen to about that.
Cool.
Yeah, but speaking of the South, I think Annie's the only one that wasn't like raised in the true South. Florida, like I wouldn't consider like the true South.
It's the north of the South.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like where all the northern people go to retire in the South. And there's like this weird
snowbirds.
Yeah. And then you got the Florida man and the Gators.
Yep. They live there during the winter to avoid and I, you know, if I could afford to do that, I would too.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I would say at least in the county I lived in for a lot of my childhood, the population would literally triple in the winter because that many people would come down. You would see cars on the road, like the majority of them were like Illinois, Ohio, some New York, you know, just so many people trying to escape the bitter winters.
Yeah, so like how was school life for you and just Florida in general growing up?
Interesting. So I was born in Maryland. I don't know if you guys actually know that yet.
No.
But I don't remember anything because I was a baby when we moved. My dad was in the Marines. He was in Force Recon, so he was really, really involved in the military. It was like a career for him.
Yeah.
So we moved from Maryland to California when I was a baby. Like there's no way I could remember. And we lived in 2 places in California, and all I really remember is, this is so bizarre that I remember this, but the weather was literally perfect. Like
in California?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the area we lived in, it was never humid, and it was always so temperate. Like it never got above 80, it never got below 60. It was basically like you walk outside and it's like air conditioning all the time. It was amazing. And it was so safe because we lived on military bases. So I could play outside and run around to the streets of my neighborhood, and my mom wouldn't have to worry because nobody's going to pull up to a Marine's house and try to take his kid. You know, it just doesn't happen. There was no crime. So I feel extremely fortunate to have grown up like that. Like I didn't know fear as a kid because I didn't have to.
Lucky.
I know, I was so lucky, and I didn't know how lucky I was until I was like pulled out of that environment. I mean, where we moved to Florida when I was 8 or 9. And that was when my dad retired. My parents decided to move back to Florida. That's where they're from. And we moved into a fairly nice neighborhood. They actually were able to build a house. It was a 2-story house. It was pretty nice. I would say my family was like pretty solid middle class, probably similar to yours, Ashley. But they had been dreaming of building a house for a long time, and they decided to when he retired. And
like fully retired from the military, like did all of his time, retired with full military.
Yeah, pension, everything.
Yeah, that's nice.
He still worked. He worked a pretty normal job after. And he wasn't making a ton of money, but his pension like really helped. And my mom didn't have to work. And yeah, it was just, I had a very quiet I can't say normal because everyone's normal is different, but just a very uneventful childhood, I would say.
Right.
I was also very fortunate to go to a private Christian school.
Which is probably a lot different than both of our experiences.
Yeah.
100%.
It was, it's private, so it costed money, and my parents couldn't have afforded it because it was expensive. But my grandparents were the ones who paid for it, and it's still to this day, like as an adult, I'm like, they're so generous for paying for that. Like, it was so crazy. I have 2 sisters. All 3 of us were able to go to that school because of them.
So were there any like fights that would go on?
Oh, never.
Yeah, that was
literally.
my guess, but
I
you
remember.
never know.
Yeah, I remember hearing stories. Like, I only knew like a couple kids that were outside of my school, and I think it was through church. Like, my entire world was enveloped in Christianity growing up. Like, I did not know anyone outside of that.
So like borderline Amish, not that extreme,
No.
but like a step before.
No, not that bad. But anyway, so the few times I heard about fights happening, I was always like how I reacted to your story. I was like, "Ooh, a fight!" Like, it was so cool. Like, I wish I could see that.
I relate to you in that experience because going to that non-private invitation-only school,
Yeah, it's exclusive.
we didn't have fights because you can get kicked out.
Oh yeah,
So
No.
yeah. You could
fighting
get
was
kicked
not
out of my
something we
school
did.
for looking at somebody wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like, people. I mean, kids were doing bad stuff. Bad things happen no matter what school you're at.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's how
but-
much they either hide it or just get rid of the kids who are doing the bad things.
Right.
I think
And-
mine did like neither at that point, because like my middle school is like a borderline prison. Like prison rules were a thing.
Oh my.
Yeah, it was very scary. Like there was fights consistently. Sometimes you would show up there, get off the bus, and boom, fight happen. Or like right before you leave, fight happen. It was just a lot of like low income troubled kids, and then they're just
Yeah.
like I said, it was like prison rules. And what I mean by that, like essentially like everybody was trying to find clout and get popular and just like be the toughest or the most popular, and like fighting and just doing bad things or just doing drugs, which like thinking about it now, it's like crazy.
You were a child.
Yeah, like middle school, just like tampering with drugs.
Oh my goodness. That's so
Like,
crazy.
Your brain is not developed enough for that, but that is a
No.
whole nother conversation
Yeah,
that
that's a
I'm
whole
willing
nother
to have.
topic.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, so school, again, very uneventful. I only had 55. I think my graduating class was 55. So, yeah,
my
my social bubble was very small.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't really have any friends outside of youth group or school, which was essentially youth group.
Yeah.
And I knew very little about the world when I graduated high school. And that was kind of when my life hit the fan a little bit in a lot of ways.
Right.
But that's, I was 18 at that point, so it's not really my childhood, but I feel like my life didn't truly start until I like went off on my own.
Because you were so sheltered.
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of Nemo when he first left the coral reef.
Exactly. Little Nemo, that was me. But I with all that being said, like, I don't think that being sheltered is in and of itself negative.
Right.
I think it can be really good. Like, for example, your mom wanted to keep you safe,
Yeah.
and it worked. You're here.
I am
You're
here.
alive in one piece. And
I almost got burnt down, but
yeah, you burned down a trampoline, but you didn't burn down yourself, so that's good.
That is very good. I'm very
Yeah.
fortunate about that.
Yeah. But there are definitely pros and cons to parenting in a way that's, I don't know how to word it correctly, but I guess careful parenting.
yeah.
Every parent does what they think is best ultimately, and I'm really grateful that my parents did what they thought was best with me, even though I feel like I don't feel like I missed out necessarily, but I had to learn a lot of things the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that careful parenting is a good thing, but there becomes a point where you gotta let go.
Yeah.
You know, because a lot of development that you have as a child doesn't happen with your mom right there in the room. It happens between you and the other kids in your class. It happens like that way. So like there's only so much you can do to be careful as a parent.
Yeah.
And what people think is what's best sometimes is not best.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, experiences may vary.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very true.
As
That's
it shows,
basically
like
our
right,
childhood.
right here with all three of us, even us two being in the same like region generally,
Yeah.
like was two different experiences.
Different socioeconomic backgrounds. Like, I mean, I have my dad's family's more northern, whereas my mom's family's very southern. So there was a little difference in there, whereas I think both sides of your family's pretty
Yeah,
southern.
very southern. Like my accent may sound bad to some people, but like wait till you hear some of my family members. Like
You
I'll
probably
have
won't
to
understand.
translate.
Yeah.
I have to
Your
be an
pa.
interpreter.
You might have to
Yeah.
bring like your brother on just so we can hear him talk.
Oh, he's a little stronger of an accent than you. I think you've been working on it.
Yeah, well, I just like also growing up try to fit in. Like even though I grew up mostly like and born and raised in the South, I didn't want a thick Southern accent because I know like the connotation behind
There's
that
a
can be like
stigma.
negative. Yeah, like oh you're
Isn't
dumb.
that sad?
Right.
Well, it comes from like the whole hillbilly thing.
Yeah, but like just it's like such a concentrated form of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way that you talk can bring a totally different experience in
Right,
your
because
life.
people judge whether they like to think so or not.
Yeah, it's so sad that kids aren't born discriminating like that. They learn it,
I mean, I remember I took acting classes growing up because that was like my special interest. I really loved theater, and I even like pursued it through college. After college, decided like I'm kind of burnt out. But when I was taking them, and I started in the 3rd grade with like an after school program with the best theater teacher ever named Dr. Kat. I hope she listens. But she is awesome. But I remember her coming to me and saying, "You have a very thick Southern accent." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "We're going to have to work on that." And I was like, "Why?" She was like, "Nobody will hire you if you sound like a Southerner. They're going to think you're dumb."
ouch.
And it's the truth. Like, it is the truth. I think because if I sounded like my mother, I do not think I wouldn't have the same opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thankful, but also regretful that she took away my accent because my family has lived in the Appalachia area, like Southern Appalachia area forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get sad thinking that my accent's stripped because it's taking away a little bit part of like my culture.
Yeah, your history.
But I'm thankful that I have a pretty Middle English accent, like Middle America accent.
And I've heard your
It
accent
helps.
come out a couple times.
Yeah,
Wait until I'm
it
mad.
does occasionally.
If I'm mad or I'm around my mother, oh my god, it comes out in droves. It's thick with 2 C's.
Yeah. The first time I ever heard someone tell me that I had an accent was when I moved here to the South. They were
Yeah.
like, "You sound like you're from the North."
But it's really just Florida.
And I was like, "But I'm not." So is that good or bad? Like I feel like no matter where you are, if you sound different, it's bad. Like the people around you will think of you as like different. Like, "Oh, you're not from here."
Tribalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't get away from it. So at the end of the day, talk how you're going to talk. And whoever doesn't like it can go take a hike.
Right.
Exactly.
But that's how I feel every time I travel up north, though.
Yeah, they
Like, I
pointed out in your voice before they
So
pointed out in
bad. I
mine.
thought, and I don't even feel like I have like a very thick Southern accent, but they're like, "Oh my god."
Where are you from? Yeah.
Oh, okay, Conway Twitty.
I mean, it's a little thick. It's
I
not
guess.
terrible,
Yeah.
but I like it. I think I wish people had more regional accents.
Yeah. And there's so many accents in the United States. So many.
What would Florida sound like if it were an accent?
See, I think it sounds accentless.
Because so many people come there.
Yeah. I don't know why. Like, I guess, yeah, it's a melting pot of so many different states. But I don't know. I feel like all other regions of the U.S. have a distinct kind of dialect and accent.
Yeah.
But Florida's just its own thing. It's the Australia of the United States. Like,
It really is.
the alligators, the bugs, and it's so hot. So hot.
I could never live there. The humidity, like I've always dealt with humidity in the South, and it's always been bad. But going down to Florida, it's like veteran difficulty level. Like,
Yeah. I hate to be that person that, like, when someone complains about the weather, you're like, "Oh, well, I'm from this place. This is nothing." I hate when people do that. But I can't say that hasn't crossed my mind when people are complaining about the humidity here, because
you're not swimming through it.
It is bad.
It's bad.
But
like when I tell you that I've looked at my weather app when I used to live in Florida, and
Yeah.
it said it was like 90% humidity.
I mean, that's what it was like when we lived at the beach.
It's
my
bad.
It is very bad.
It's like you walk outside and it hits you.
Like immediate. You're just immediately sweaty.
Immediately.
Yeah.
Like, and you immediately smell bad, and you're like, no layer
You're just
of
musty
secret
all the time.
or Dove will do anything to this scent.
Yep. Yeah. Here's another thing I didn't talk about.
Oh,
Yeah.
What is it?
Okay, so if you guys follow us on Instagram, do that. I mentioned in our most recent post that I wanted a pony
Oh, yeah.
really bad when I was a kid. I was an animal kid. I watched Animal Planet constantly.
Oh,
I didn't really care
Steve
about
Irwin.
cartoons.
R.I.P.
Yeah, Steve Irwin. He was one of my favorites. Rest in peace. But I just loved animals so much, and I, for whatever reason, was just fixated on horses, and I loved them so much, and I wanted to take horseback riding lessons literally ever since I can remember, and I just begged and begged and begged my parents until they could not take it anymore. And I started horseback riding lessons when I was 8, and I literally continued until I was like in my early 20s, and it became like my favorite hobby, and it was so fun, and it also meant that I became a horse girl.
Oh, we all knew one. We all know a horse girl.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
true.
That was me. But I wasn't the kind that would like get on all fours and like gallop around and like whinny at
Oh.
people.
Classrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't that bad, but I still had the like founding fathers low pony and the just kind of lack of understanding that other people didn't care about horses as much as I did.
Right.
Like all of my binders had horses on the front. I like would print out pictures of horses to put on my binders.
And put them in like the slip
Yes.
between. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like my whole identity. And I don't regret it. Like it was such a fun thing to do growing up. And it taught me a lot of really important things. It taught me hard work. I got a really bad farmer's tan. Well, the horse farmer's tan is different for all you horse people. It's your legs are pale white because you always wear pants and boots. And you have the short sleeve shirt tan, and you usually wear polos in English riding. So your neck is protected, luckily. But you have like a little bit of V-neck tan, and then you have a glove tan as well
Oh.
from riding gloves.
It's a bunch
I
of
didn't know you're-
awkward tans.
Yeah.
Very weird. So like
That'd be
basically
weird.
it's your like forearm to like mid bicep is just so tan. And then like a little bit of your chest, and that's it. Everything else is pasty.
That's a very specific. I'm gonna start looking for that like out in the wild, so I can be like, she's a horse girl.
Yeah. That's
Look at that
that's a
tan.
dead giveaway. Yep.
That's good to know. I didn't know many. I just like casually rode a horse like a few times growing up on and off, but nothing that serious.
Yeah, same.
I was always terrified of horses. I'm like, a horse paralyzed Superman. So
What?
the actor back in the day.
Oh, I thought you
Oh,
meant literal
yeah, yeah.
Superman, and I was like,
Yeah, because
is it kryptonite and horses?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was sad. I remember hearing about that. A couple people would ask me like, "What do you think about that?" Like as if it was gonna like make me stop riding horses. I'm like, stuff happens.
Right.
Yeah.
You could be
exactly.
driving in your car and you could get in a car accident and die. You know what I mean? But yeah, horses are dangerous.
And they're big. That's what scares me.
Yeah.
Like just their sheer size and like their muscles are just like some of the really like, I don't know, I'm thinking like black stallion, like huge, these huge muscles. Like
Yeah.
all it would take is them to be like, get off me, and I'm dead. Like,
Yeah. They're very, very powerful. And yeah, people who ride horses, that's one of the amazing things about it is that you learn how to not only like bond with an animal that could kill you, but like you have to get it to do what you want it to do.
Annie, how tall are you?
I'm 5'4".
Okay, so I'm 5'7", just for reference. And
5'11",
I'm
6 foot on a good day.
I'm terrified of horses, and I am so much like I'm inches taller than you. Like,
Yeah.
why
it's
is
funny-
it always the small girls that love horses? Like all the horse girls are like these smaller, like they're itty bitty.
That's true. Yeah. I actually didn't know a ton of tall girls. Like I didn't ever take lessons with tall girls because, yeah, you're right. I've never
lower
thought about
center
that.
of gravity, maybe.
Because like I had a friend who was a horse girl, like one of my best friends growing up through middle school, and she was a horse girl, and I remember like at least being a solid head or more taller than her constantly growing up.
Yeah.
And like I know usually girls who do gymnastics are shorter too because of all the like flips and stuff. The compression on their spine will continue to make like they won't grow as much.
Right.
Is there something like that with horse girls? Like, is there a lot of spinal compression from
Possibly. I don't know. I've never thought about it like that.
We're gonna research that.
Yeah, that's
could be
an
like a
interesting
whole other
thing
topic.
to look into. But
The dichotomy of the horse girl.
yeah, I'm convinced that my legs are super strong now though because of horseback riding. Like,
We're like having to pull in, like push in.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said you both had ridden horses before. Do you remember when you got off, you felt like the inner of your legs were
yes.
so sore,
Yeah.
like immediately?
Yeah.
It's like that, but like,
And like a little jelly.
yeah, like your legs were weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, like once you become accustomed to that, your legs become like rocks. Like they are strong. And especially when you get into like, I did like jumping. So
Yeah.
that stuff takes a lot more like balance and control and
So you did it competitively?
for a little bit, yeah.
that's
Competitions were expensive. Horseback riding is just an expensive sport. Like I only had a horse for like I want to say 6 or 8 months
Yeah.
because we just couldn't afford to like keep him at a barn for that long. Like
Yeah, I'm sure it costs like thousands of dollars a year.
at a nice place, yeah. Like we found a really good deal, but again, my parents were like pretty middle class, so like it's a wealthy person's sport for sure. Like for example, the Kennedys are involved in horseback riding. Like it's like one of those things that
It's one of those elite sports,
yeah,
like water polo.
exactly.
Water polo.
And for whatever reason, golf. Like why is? Anyways, I don't understand golf. I really don't.
I like disc golf, but regular golf.
Yeah, disc golf for the win.
I went to Top Golf and I was very, very good at that. So I
was
have high
very
hopes.
bad at that.
Ooh, I
Of
still
being good
haven't
at
been
golf.
there.
And I whip his butt in mini golf. I don't know what. I just like focus in. And I'm like tap, tap, and I make it every
Yeah.
time, every freaking time.
That's funny. Yeah. But yeah, horseback riding, it was so fun growing up, and I will take the horse girl name and title and I will wear it proudly because I learned so much about myself and hard work and what it takes to be, a solid human being.
Yeah.
And it taught me a lot about like emotional strength too. Like that's why horses are used in therapy a lot because you like bond with this animal that is so powerful and could easily crush you in like a matter of seconds, but you form a bond with them and they end up trusting you, and it's just really special. So to all those horse people out there, don't let people tell you that what you're doing is weird. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Do what you love.
Exactly.
It's a motto here at this podcast. Do what you love.
Let people enjoy things.
Do what
Let
you
people
love.
enjoy things.
Not everything has to be monetized.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even though it's kind of pushed on us that like everything needs to be monetized, make money, hustle culture, have side gigs. No, let's just have a hobby.
Yeah, just have a hobby, enjoy life.
Like remember when we were kids and we would have these hobbies and we didn't have to think about money and it was so fun.
It was
just
amazing.
pure fun.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah. Life is a lot more expensive now, though. I will
It
say
is
that.
significantly.
100%.
Yeah.
When I try to explain to my parents, like, hey, like at my age, you guys had a house.
Yeah.
I can barely afford a car.
Yeah. Back when people could put themselves through college by working a part-time job.
Yeah, I can afford that 67 Mustang of working minimum wage or working at a pizza shop.
I mean, I grew up with my dad making roughly between like $75,000 and $80,000, and my mom making roughly 10 to 15, maybe on a good year.
So you guys were doing good.
Yeah, we were about $100,000. My parents, I mean, had my house. The house was paid off by the time I was like 15, 16. Both of them grew up poor, so paying off the house, getting out of debt was like very major for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So like we had paid off cars, paid off house, but they saved,
Mm-hmm.
which is good because when my dad did eventually lose his job, they were able to.
They were prepared.
Yeah, for about a year,
Wow.
Dad was able
ish.
to.
Good for them.
I mean, he was still working like gig jobs, but like he didn't have like full-time employment for about a year, and they survived. Their bank account did go down, but
But
I couldn't do that.
right. Yeah.
We can't
they were
save
ready.
like that.
Yeah.
And now they're starting to realize how hard it is to save back up. Now.
Yeah.
Not back then.
Yeah.
Now.
Being alive is just expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having medical problems and being alive is expensive, but that will be a whole episode, I hope.
Oh, girl.
Yeah, that
I hope.
inflation.
Oh, girl. I can go and get my bills out of my drawer in the kitchen.
But I mean, I think that was a pretty good summary, though. Good first episode.
Yeah.
Good like brief overview of kind of like us.
Yeah. And so we've kind of talked about it. In our next episode, we are going to be discussing whether or not we are cheugy.
Oh,
So
Cheugy.
Gen Z,
I just heard this word the other day.
that's because you're a little bit cheugy.
Oh, that's okay. I
So-
could be chug.
Gen Z calls like a lot of things that millennials like cheugy, and like cheugy's we'll go into the whole definition of it, but just to give you a little taste, cheugy is like when you're trying too hard to be cool and trendy. Like that's how Gen Z thinks about it. So we're gonna compile a list of cheugy things, and we're gonna decide whether or not we agree with Gen Z, whether that whatever it is cheugy, or if we kind of still think it's trendy. I think I'm gonna think a lot of it's trendy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll
that's just
see.
the generation that we're from. We need to get somebody on here that
A
can,
true Gen Z.
yeah, like a chuggy judge,
Ooh.
like a disinterested third party.
Yeah.
Like
Disinterested.
you're chug.
If any of you are interested, if you consider yourself Gen Z and you would like to be our cheugy judge, let us know. You can reach us at zillennialspod@gmail.com.
It's spelled millennials, but with a Z.
Yeah, that's
There
important.
we go.
We had to look up how to spell it because there's 2 L's, 2 N's, and for whatever reason, the L's and the N's can get confusing.
Yeah, some people don't spell it right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just one of those words that you don't like typically spell often.
Right.
Right.
You
But-
say it. But anyways, I had a lot of fun with you guys, and I can't wait to
Yeah.
do it again.
This is
Yeah,
such a fun first
thanks for joining
episode.
us.
And what's our motto?
Just let people enjoy things.
Just let people enjoy things, you
Enjoy
guys.
the ride.
Thanks so much for listening. If you like what you heard, please let us know in the reviews. We release episodes bi-weekly on all major podcasting platforms. If you need to reach us, our email is zillennialspod@gmail.com. It's spelled like millennials, but with a Z. Hit that follow button so you don't miss the next episode.